And I want to be wherever you are, even if it is virtual.
Me too.
Well, let's begin. Hi, everybody. Good afternoon. Thank you for joining today's session for the Aspire Fellowship this semester. And our topic today is finding the right community college for you and community college faculty responsibilities. So today we are joined by Dr. Jean Meyers and Professor Gigi Delk, who will be speaking to us about community college responsibilities, specifically in, as you can see on the slide, in the areas of teaching and service, which are the central part or the central component of your teaching responsibilities as a community college faculty member. And I would like to welcome both Dr. Meyers and Professor Delk, and I will have Dr. Flores give us a few words of encouragement and introduction before we turn it on to our speakers.
Well, thank you, Sarah. First of all, I want to once again acknowledge our community college faculty that are participating in this webinar today, knowing that without you, the mentorship of our graduate students would not be possible. This program aims at increasing the visibility of opportunities for graduate students to pursue academic careers at community colleges. So what our faculty mentors and what our guest speakers have to say is of paramount importance. Everybody, I think, now understands that the missions and visions of community colleges can vary from one institution to another. However, there's a common national overarching umbrella that defines what community colleges are supposed to be about. And of course, given the fact that most of them are funded locally by their communities, community colleges have therefore responsibility to serve their region of influence, and therefore making sure that our students understand that what's most important for our community college faculty is the responsibility associated with teaching and service. I think as long as you get that message and you have an opportunity to reflect on that and make sure that you also have a conversation with your faculty mentors so that you, the graduate students, get a better perspective of what these possibilities for you, future possibilities for you entail. Okay, so as the introduction says, we have a landscape of a community college faculty responsibilities, but the focus is on teaching and assisting students, and also to make sure that there's a continuous improvement of the curriculum, of the degree plans, the requirements associated with these degrees, and other aspects of learning. We know that these responsibilities and professional duties also entail the governance of community colleges, and there are other academic matters that are important, but we should never lose track of the fact that among all the many things, and we're going to have Professors Delk and Meyers talk to you about what the responsibilities are, and you'll get a sense of how deeply committed they are to their respective institutions and to the students that they educate. So with this in mind, Sarah, you want to go to the next slide?
Yes.
So we're going to ask, go ahead, Sarah.
No, I was just gonna reintroduce Dr. Jean Meyers for the community college teaching responsibilities, and a quick slide on some background because our presenters are very humble and they don't like to talk about themselves a lot, but that's the point, to share their experience and their own journey as administrators, as faculty members, and the overall experience of teaching at a community college. So Dr. Jean Meyers is a professor of biology at Tarrant County College. There's a little blurb at the bottom of the slide about her college and some of the administrative roles that she's currently holding or has held in the past is being co-chair of the Department of Biological Sciences and is currently the site director of the UT System LSAM program, which we are fond and proud. And she has studies from Purdue University and the University of Minnesota Twin Cities, where she received her PhD in molecular cell development biology and genetics. So after that, Dr. Meyers, welcome. Thank you for your time.
Thank you, Sarah, and thank you, Ben. I really appreciated that quote that you had, Ben, because it really does reflect, for me, that's true, that a community college has just been the sweet spot for teaching, because it focuses so much on the importance of teaching and interactions with students and student development. So it's been a great landing spot for me. So Ben and Sarah have asked me to talk a little bit about the teaching responsibilities for a community college professor. And some of these are sort of fixed for at least within the state of Texas, and some of them vary a little bit. But the state sets for us the classes that we can teach as credit courses. So we can't just offer any class that we're interested in. We have a set of courses that we can deploy as credit courses, and this is to ensure that what we're offering will transfer to state institutions, so that when you take something at El Paso Community College, it'll be taken at UTEP as a transfer credit. So that is a little bit of a limitation in terms of the kinds of things you can teach. And of course, our community college doesn't offer any bachelor's degrees. There are a few in the state of Texas that do, usually in, at least the ones I'm familiar with, are like in nursing, for instance. There are some community colleges that can offer bachelor's degrees, but ours does not do that yet. And so we're pretty much teaching the first 2-year classes, and those are the things that transfer. So that's what we teach in terms of credit. Our faculty can also contribute to non-credit courses. This is like continuing education or community education. And there's a lot more flexibility about the kinds of courses that you can teach. Our full-time faculty teach 15 hours a semester. So that's I don't know if you guys are mostly STEM. I'm a STEM person. So for us, it's lecture and lab. Our particular institution counts both of those hours equally. So our faculty, I personally teach lectures and labs, and if I teach a 3-hour lab, that's worth the same amount of work hours as a 3-hour lecture course does. And so they're equivalent for us. That's not true at all community colleges, but that's how our institution handles it. And so we teach nine-month calendar, or we're on 9-month contracts, and we teach 15 hours each semester. So that's what our teaching load looks like. There's, of course, opportunities to teach more than that. Some of our faculty teach in the summer, teach on wintermester and Maymester schedules, so different term length courses. And we do have faculty that teach field studies courses, or courses that travel abroad, or we did anyway, post-pandemic. Hopefully those will come back too. But those are also some kind of a little bit less common, but other types of teaching that we do. We have really good professional development at our campus. I kind of feel like I should preface and say that Tarrant County, which is the Fort Worth metro area, is a really growing metro area in Texas. So we have a really big population base and a strong population base. And our funding has been really healthy from our local community. So one of our vice presidents is fond of saying that we're a very rich college. We have plenty of money. So a lot of the things I'm talking about are, true at a community college that's in a growing area that's got a lot of support from their community. But, some smaller community colleges might not have quite the resources available that we have. But as I was saying, we have really good professional development. So we can apply for travel funds. Again, pre-pandemic, post-pandemic, we can apply for travel funds. And I've been able to go to conferences pretty much every year that I've wanted to go, you know, not internationally, but within the country. So any national conference that interests me that matches up with my teaching area, or that, you know, either is in my scientific discipline or focuses on pedagogy, I can apply for and attend. So I've been able to attend some really great conferences. And there's, you know, we bring in speakers for pedagogical training as well. It's really priority for us that our faculty are trained in effective teaching practices. So I know that's part of the Aspire program, that you guys are learning more about that as well, using evidence-based practices. And so that's a big emphasis for us. It's a, you know, it's not something that we're going to accomplish in one day or 1 year. And it's always an it's an ever growing problem as our student populations change, that we need to revise our practices. But we do have a lot of support for our faculty in learning how to be more effective with our student populations. And then we also have some of our faculty do quite a bit of student support. We have a faculty mentoring program, which helps students decide, you know, not only what they may want to major in as they move on to university, but also what courses they should be taking at the community college level, and, you know, really helping students with their career trajectory and with their course load and that kind of thing. And we also try to identify students that might really benefit from getting a little, how do I say this, from being more involved in campus. And so we have some student worker jobs that we can kind of funnel students in. If we have a student who we think is really probably going to have a promising career in science, we start funneling them into those student worker roles so that they get a little bit more of that kind of exposure. So for instance, our department uses student workers as student lab assistants. And so that helps those students get a little bit more confidence and feel like they've got a little bit more going on in the science area, and that then encourages them to do things like go on and apply for summer research experiences and apply for jobs in labs at the undergraduate level as well. So we do try to, you know, kind of help students that we think have a lot of promise, help funnel them into opportunities that might be helpful for them. We do lots of grading for sure. Looking at what you have listed on here. Our campus, our college has an online campus, and they have some full-time faculty that work for them that teach strictly online. But my campus is a face-to-face campus. And so if I personally was hired as a face-to-face instructor, and so my teaching load has to be face-to-face. I can teach for the online college, but it has to be part of my overload. So I'm not, I don't have the freedom to just say, hey, I want to teach online only. If I wanted to do that, I guess I could apply for a position at the online college, but I teach as a face-to-face instructor. We do have some flexibility to modulate our instruction and offer some of our content online, but like our labs, for instance, are face-to-face labs, and they're not online and in non-pandemic times anyway. A lot of my time, honestly, has been spent on developing lab curriculum. Our campus has a pretty big focus on making sure that our labs are developed by our department, and then that they're taught pretty consistently from section to section. So our full-time faculty work really hard on developing lab curriculum, make sure we have clear set of learning objectives and set of lab instructions and things like that, so that everybody who's teaching that lab is teaching basically the same content and the students have a pretty similar experience. I've spent, I don't know how long it's been, at least 5 years, probably a little bit more than that now, working on developing student research experiences in our introductory lab courses. And so that's been a lot of time to develop that curriculum and then evaluate it, make revisions, evaluate it again, make revisions, and so on, to get a curriculum where we felt like our students were getting the basics of lab instruction that they need, but also getting some familiarity with research techniques and being able to ask their own questions and design their own experiments and interpret their own data and that kind of thing. So developing curriculum is a big part of my job, and that's for sure true both in the lecture and the lab. But lab has, that's an area where what effective teaching looks like at the collegiate level has really changed, probably since I went to school for sure, maybe even since you went to school. And so that's an area where we've really grown and changed what we've done. Same thing, I guess, with lecture, because there's a lot more emphasis on active learning and not so much this sage on the stage, as they call it, where the teacher's just talking the whole time. Department duties and roles, really the lab curriculum management is probably the biggest thing that our full-time faculty do outside of their regular teaching jobs, is to take care of those lab curricula and make sure that our adjunct faculty know how to run the labs. And we kind of have a mentoring program for our adjunct faculty. So the full-time faculty are paired up with adjuncts and try to match them up with the ones who are teaching in the same teaching area to make sure that our adjuncts are being effective. And, you know, when you're teaching part-time and you have another full-time job, you just don't have the time to put into things. And so our full-time faculty do a lot of support for those individuals as well. We do have a professional development requirement, but like I said, it's really well funded so that there's quite a few opportunities to get professional development hours. Our requirement's 24 hours a year, which is not hard to do at all. And we do have a tenure path, which is not true at all community colleges. So after 3 full years of teaching, depending on your level of your level of education, you're eligible for promotion in rank and tenure. And it's I don't know, if you think about tenure as being permanent protection from being fired, it's definitely not that, but it does provide an additional layer of protection for people that have tenure compared to individuals that don't have tenure. Otherwise, our faculty are on 1-year annually renewing contracts. They're very rarely not renewed, but we are just basically on annual renew. To get promotion and rank, you have to have demonstrated either achieved a higher degree or demonstrated a certain degree of scholarship. But again, it's a pretty straightforward thing as long as you've got, you know, if you have that graduate degree and have some scholarship from that, it's usually relatively straightforward. Most of the time I can say I love my job. I have increased my administrative responsibilities in the last few years, and that has probably decreased my job satisfaction a bit. Teaching online is not my favorite thing, so that as well has decreased my job satisfaction a little bit, but we're looking forward to going back to school face-to-face in the fall, so hopefully that'll be better. Let's see. One thing I should mention is that I came from a really strong research background, so I was had a lot of postdoc experience and had a big research history, and so giving that up has its challenges. But we do have opportunities to bring our research, not just by telling our students about the research that we did, but we do have some independent, what would you call it? It's a course that the students can take where they do an independent research project and they can work with a faculty member one-on-one. And so that is an opportunity to bring your research back to the community college if it's suited to that, or to get engaged in a research project with students, even if it's not exactly the same as your teaching discipline. So those opportunities do exist. They're limited. It's not the main thing that you do, but there are some opportunities for that, and also for collaborating if you, are in close proximity with your prior lab, or if you know people at a local institution that you can collaborate with. Sometimes they have projects that are well suited to student research projects. And so there's some of that happening at our college as well. I think that's everything I had just jotted down as notes. Ben, do you have anything I may have left out? I'm not paying attention to time, so sorry if I went too long.
You're great. We're
Okay.
right on time.
All right, that's what I got.
Thank you so much, Dr. Flores. Oh, he's gone.
Oops.
Wow.
There he goes. He's magic.
You're muted, Dr. Flores.
As always, I'm muted. I don't know if this is intentional or not, but it happens often. Dr. Meyers, I think, touches on a number of items that I think are important to address during our breakout session. and that has to do with the evolution of responsibility. So I want our graduate students to pay attention to that, because whether you teach at a community college or you decide to follow an academic career elsewhere, you should keep in mind that your responsibilities will change with time. They are a function of time, and believe it or not, the responsibilities seem to always be increasing and not decreasing. So that's something that you all need to just keep in mind, that the evolution of your job will always be there. So we're going to have now Professor Delk. Sarah, if you can move the slide, and I'll let you do the introduction, Sarah.
Yes, and thank you, Dr. Meyers, for your contribution. I think it's also important to mention that the tenure path is available, just knowing that there is a difference because the focus will not be research. So there is that difference from a four-year institution. Some of you as STEM students are focused in your graduate path on research or projects that are research-based, but community colleges, as we have learned throughout our previous presentations and speakers, are shifting this paradigm, and now we have areas for research at community colleges, which is relatively new. So that's something to consider as you explore the possibility of a career at a community college. This is an emerging, I would think, area to explore, and it is something that has been happening. So transitioning now into our next speaker, Professor Delk will be talking to us about the service as a faculty responsibility service to the college. And she is joining us today from Tyler Junior College. She's a professor of CIS and gaming simulation development. I always find that so interesting, gaming simulation development, and has previously served as a senior adjunct lecturer at University of Texas, Tyler. Other administrative roles include faculty senate, TCCTA campus representative, advisor for the Phi Theta Kappa Honor Society, and current site director for the ALSAM program. Busy. And she has studies from Southern Arkansas University and East Texas State University, where she received her MS in computer science and business. As we previously saw, there is a small description of Tyler Junior College to offer you an insight on Professor Delk's current service and workplace. So Gigi, all yours, welcome.
Well, I'm glad to be here. I'm going to go ahead and let you bounce it to the next slide, just so I have that in mind. I'm going to take just a minute or two to contrast. Jean and I work together in LSAMP, so we're very familiar with one another, but it's been interesting to us to see the differences. We actually are much closer to one another in our two respective campuses than we are to all of you guys in El Paso today. I always like to say that I can get to the Mall of America in Minnesota quicker than I can get to El Paso, Texas. But I was born in Alamogordo, New Mexico, so I know just exactly where all of you are. Tyler Junior College has about 12,000 students, so we are a much smaller school district. We are not by any means what anyone would call a rich school, but we are. It does bring home the fact that we have to be very much in touch with the community, because the community tax dollars is what pays for a large percentage of the community college funding base. Some of the money comes from student fees, and that certainly has been rising, as you all know, but a lot of that money comes from your constituents in the community, and they will be very interested if they feel like they are paying your salary and they would like to see a cooking class over somewhere in the continuing education department. You better have one, because those are the people that you need to keep happy. They are, to a certain extent, you have many supervisors. TJC does not have tenure. We do have what amounts to a 3-year contract. So you work your way up. You're a 1-year contract. And when, as Jean said, sometimes if you're a 1-year contract, Texas is a right to work state, which means that they can tell you that your services are no longer needed for any and all reasons. So tenure doesn't really afford you any type of job security, nor does a 3-year contract. Generally speaking, those of us in the STEM fields laugh and say, find 2 people to take our job. Go ahead, we're good. So if you are working, what we tend to see is that we have, the smaller the campus, the more, I guess, opportunities there might be for some additional leadership and some additional service to the community. And I'll go back to that you have service to your college, I also am involved in curriculum development as an instructor in the game and simulation area. We really wrote our own books. We wrote our own course materials. Everything was literally created by the faculty during the summer. And if you are in the professional and technical area, which is where the computer science program happens to fall at TJC, there's not a lot of extra funding for course development, because basically we're developing courses all the time. It's completely, I think the day is gone where your mathematics and your English teachers are teaching out of yellow edged books that they've had for 10 years, because I think the publishers won't let us keep the books that long anymore. But the fact is that calculus has not changed much in terms of what's happening in there. Certainly biology is changing. What is it? The medical knowledge is shifting somewhere between 200 and 300 days. We double our knowledge in the fields of biology and medicine. Computer science is certainly exploding. We had a SACS review. We are, of course, all community colleges fall under a review process for accreditation. And the accreditation committee decided that we all needed to have education in our teaching field. And I said, well, I'm teaching video game development, and that didn't exist when I graduated from college. How would you like for me to approach this? And they all looked at me and said, well, So, but programming, interestingly enough, while I am not necessarily the most well-versed in the Unreal Engine or in the different programming that we do with 3D, and I can go in and work with those students, because the same mistakes made at the programming level for all you engineering majors that have to take C++, that one or two programming classes that the electrical engineers have to take. I've taught a lot of those at the University of Texas at Tyler. And you guys look at me with a horrified face, and and you're saying, why do I have to know this programming stuff? And I look at you with you're playing with electricity and like it. And so we both agree to disagree on what what our career fields are going to be. But it's a basic premise, much like when Jean talked about research. There's a way research is conducted. And certainly we've changed the vehicles and the additional materials we have to do that research, but there's a process that still very much is a proven method for determining the correct responses in any one of the STEM fields, and we see that in programming as well. Now, as far as the service goes, and they mentioned a couple of things, of course, we've got services in the college, curriculum development, mentoring new faculty. In smaller schools, I am out in the community and actually have my ear to the ground at all times looking for potential adjuncts. When I go out and talk about Tyler Junior College at community events or at local high schools, I'm always checking out to see if the programming instructor has a master's degree at 18 hours, because they could be a potential adjunct. Because in smaller cities, there's not the wealth of adjuncts you see in the bigger cities. So we are always on the lookout for a few adjuncts. And the reason is, and you'll have to understand this about the education process, that the adjuncts allow the school to expand or contract in terms of enrollment without anybody permanently losing their job. We can hire some additional adjuncts, we can drop off a few adjuncts. So it gives us a lot of flexibility in the education side of the world. Within my discipline, if you're going to work in STEM, I hope that you are very committed to lifelong learning, because everything that we do changes, which I personally think is amazing. I actually went all the way through cost accounting in business and thought if I had to do that for a living, I would leap off a tall building. My apologies to any accountants out there, but getting the little line to wind up at a 0 is not where I want to be. Sorry about that. We have a phone going off in the background, which I thought I got rid of a minute ago. There we go. But I do, you have to stay fresh. And I'll say this, that probably Dr. Baines will agree, that the material that we were teaching when we began our teaching experience is now, a great amount of it is gone. They've moved on to completely different knowledge. There's a completely different aspect to a lot of things. The programming languages that were the languages of my education, which was C++ and COBOL and Fortran and some of the, I know I'm ancient, but those are completely gone by the wayside. Although I'll mention, if you actually know how to do COBOL programming, there's a fortune to be made, because there's millions of lines of legacy code out there that somebody has to update. But you have a lot of work to keep fresh in your discipline. And that's where some of the ability to go to conferences is very crucial, because that's an opportunity for you to really see cutting edge material. The other thing, and I don't know about the other schools, but because we are on 9-month contracts, you are actually encouraged to go and work in industry during the summers if you would like to. There's no rule that says you can't do that. A number of our faculty, particularly in gaming and simulation, do work for industry on a regular basis, because that keeps them in touch with what's actually going on in the career field. Because in the community college, we are, part of our accreditation says, can people that leave your school that are in the workforce program get jobs? We literally have to show that people are becoming gainfully employed with the courses that we teach. And on the other side are people that leave your school successfully transferring and moving through a baccalaureate program onto a master's degree. Did they receive a good foundational education? So we really do serve both sides of the educational arena. And so for that reason, there's a lot of work within your discipline. In computer science in particular, we have a number of classes tailored for our workforce students, and then we have transfer. So we're one of those odd degrees that has their foot both in the world of transfer education and in the world of workforce. So it's sometimes an interesting game to see the courses that are offered. At Tyler Junior College, in computer science, we teach our own lab. So at lecture and lab courses, the standard science course. But I know in our biology area, because of the lack of accessibility of people that had a master's degree in 18 hours in biology, we, the biology professors, teach the lecture, and we actually have a category called lab specialist that comes in with a bachelor's degree and can teach in a reasonably well-paid, you know, at least they're not starving. I won't say it's exactly well-paid, but they're not starving to death, but they get to teach as a lab specialist. They teach the lab classes, and frequently they are working toward a master's degree and move in and now become professors that are teaching. That lab specialist is where we've had a number of the Aspire students that are working through the fellowships that have actually, in fact, we have one again this year that is already employed in the fall as an adjunct. They've got to look at that person's work. They're pleased with that, and they're going to hire them as an adjunct. So we have a lot of that standard activity, but also, again, we have, as a community college professor, you're going to have an opportunity to do a lot off campus. You are truly a representative of your school wherever you go. The smaller the community, the more likely the school has a very large footprint. And so you are very involved. I know at different times I have been on the technology boards at various high schools and ISDs in our area. I've been called in to serve on a couple of different boards with nonprofits, looking at what their computer needs are going to be. So there's a wide variety of things you can do. Go ahead and bounce me to that next slide, Sarah. So when I think about faculty service, and I'll say this because I think that you may see people burn out because they're working a lot, but in the fields of computer science, I myself prefer learning things new. I like the idea that next year there's going to be something new to learn and something different. I think biology goes along the same way. Mathematics, perhaps not so much. I think you might teach the same college algebra class you've been teaching for several years. So part of the way that I think that the community college job experience remains fresh is the fact that we indeed can kind of reinvent ourselves. There are certainly our avenues to move into aspects of administration, and there's definitely ways to become involved with students and organizations. For example, The Texas Community College Teachers Association, TCCTA, is an organization that most community college faculty belong to, and there are some leadership opportunities there. Of course, you've heard of LSAMP and Aspire, and I'm sure you're familiar with both of those, but it does give us a chance to work in teaching research, even outside of our own professional discipline, because again, the basics of how you would do research somewhat stay the same. So it's very easy to get other students excited when I'm excited about the idea of learning new things there. We do a lot of proposals for grants and for conferences through some of these outside opportunities. And so along that line, I say that this is a great opportunity to get involved, both in your campus and your community. I've served on selection committees. All of what I would call my superiors, my president, my provost, and my dean, I've been on the selection committee for those individuals. So I really do feel like I have buy-in. When those people come on board, I feel like that I have brought them on campus, and I have, I guess, a little bit of a loyalty, if you will, to them. I've had a chance to vet their credentials and to talk to them, and I feel confident that they're going to represent our school in a way we'd like them to. So that's pretty interesting. The longer you teach, I think the more you hear people saying, you know, part of what I teach is outside the classroom. You know, the idea of the research aspect, the idea of what do you want to do with your life? Where are you going? You notice that Dr. Meyers has, you know, PhD. There are a number of faculty at Tyler Junior College with PhDs who have chosen to teach in the community college atmosphere, because there is a little bit of less pressure, I think, sometimes at the community college atmosphere. Tyler Junior College does offer 2 baccalaureate degrees. We are one of the colleges in the state. We have a Bachelor of Science in Dental Hygiene, which was a really significant step because they didn't want to give us a Bachelor of Science. They wanted to do a Bachelor of Applied Science, and we held firm. There were no opportunities anywhere near us for a bachelor's degree in dental hygiene. And then we recently, this last year, brought on board a Bachelor of Science in Industrial Technology. And what that does is, as technology is taking over our workforce, we have to have people who are able to control and manage that. So it's a great opportunity to move forward with what I would call an advanced degree. I also sponsor Phi Theta Kappa, which is the honor society for 2-year colleges. This is the approved, the American Association for Community Colleges has actually approved Phi Theta Kappa as the honor society for 2-year degrees. And through Phi Theta Kappa, there are a lot of scholarship opportunities. And that's where I always perk my ear up, because we are not a rural community. If you know anything about Dallas, and Shreveport is kind of right there in the corner of Louisiana. We're right in between Dallas and Shreveport. But we are not, a lot of our students are not rolling in money. They're not affluent, and they're certainly looking for scholarships. So we always keep our eye to the ground to see where you might find other scholarship opportunities. As part of an LSAMP program, you are participating in paid undergraduate research. If you're part of the Aspire program, any steps you can take to go beyond what most students are doing. I'm looking at a note here. Let's see. A Bachelor of Applied Science. Basically, when you think of workforce, the 2-year, what they call a 2-year technical or terminal degree, is an Associate of Applied Science. You are taught, for example, welding technology, help desk technology. Those people are taking very little of what we would call the general education requirements. They take about 15 hours of general education. That would be a speech, and English, and mathematics, a sociology or psychology. Trying to think what else. It'll come to me. It's unfortunately been a learning frameworks class, which makes us all shudder. So I would hope that they instead were taking computer science, just a regular office class. But the great majority of their 60 hours of their undergraduate degree is actually doing what they're going to be doing at work. So when they graduate, a surveying student, for example, when they graduate with their 2-year degree, they can go out and work right then. But I have to say that for many students, if you have just a straight 2-year biology associate's degree, there's not, while certainly you have a degree, you could check that off with the workforce, you certainly are not going to be as employable as someone with a bachelor's degree or a master's degree or beyond. So there's a difference. The applied studies degrees intend for you to go to work. Now we have a electrical, no, it's not, it's process piping design. It's a engineering technologies degree. And those people are coming out with 2-year degrees and are extremely well paid. I will hesitate to say that they are sometimes better paid than community college faculty with master's or doctoral degrees in other disciplines, but they're prepared to go to work. With a standard Associate of Science, Associate of Arts degree, you are taking about 40 hours of general education. And you guys are familiar with those: 2 Englishes, 2 governments, 2 histories, a lab science, a mathematics on a sesame seed button. You know, it's that standard little sandwich that we pass, and that's what allows, of course, our programs to be transferable. But those programs are truly designed to be the foundation for you to move forward. You'll actually see more courses in your major field of study when you get to your junior or senior year. Jean, have I explained that well, do you think?
Yep, I think that's right.
Okay, so you
Gigi,
can
sorry to interrupt you. We have a great question in the chat that ties to that. I don't know if you've answered it with what you just said, but I want to make sure we tackle it. And this is from Dr. Servin. And it says, what are the advantages to have a bachelor's of applied science? Would you envision to have a bachelor's in applied science in computing? And if so, what are the trade-offs to have one in a community college? So maybe with that question, we can preface to our breakout session to have more of those addressed one-on-one. So Gigi, I don't know if you want to touch on that.
I'll be very brief because I see we're getting ready to go into that. There would never be a bachelor's of applied science in computer science because there are far too many universities that offer a bachelor of science in computer science. And so they would not allow community colleges to offer a bachelor's degree in that particular course subject. Community colleges can only offer bachelor's degrees when they are offering something that is not readily available in the universities around them or is not readily available any place for certain particular fields like dental hygiene, for example, to aspire to a higher degree and move forward. So hopefully you can see I've got a lot of student engagement and things that I work on. I do a lot of, I get to do some recruiting for the game development folks, and I get to do a lot of work, again, working with students and scholarships, helping students to prepare for presentations. Let me just say that it does add some spice to teaching. I've been teaching for 35 years. I absolutely love it. I did not intend to be a teacher in any way. I intended to be a programmer, and I thought teaching was stupid, and I wanted to get out of a classroom. I never wanted, you know, and they lured me back from the university where I graduated and said, come teach an adjunct class. And I said, okay, could use some money. So I went and taught an adjunct class, and I will tell you why I think that I value the Aspire program so much. I absolutely fell in love with teaching. I saw students that figured out we were doing coding and they understood it. And oh my goodness, that was the most fun I'd ever had. It was like, oh, I want to do more. So I immediately enrolled in a master's degree program and became a teacher. And I have never looked back. It is absolutely what I want to do. But I appreciate the fact that I have so many opportunities for different avenues of student and community involvement.
Thank you so much, Gigi. That's perfect. We are going to have now as usual, our breakout session. And each one of you, I want to do a quick hello to Dr. Servin and Dr. De La O, who are mentors joining us today. And we were going to talk about, well, obviously discuss the information provided, what you just heard, and maybe talk about, hi, Christian, how are community college faculty different from university faculty, and what are the challenges of teaching at a community college? I know that some of you, our fellows, have the experience of being TAs or RAs. There's a couple of you who've had previous lecturing opportunities as well. So you're quite familiar with what it is to transition from being a student or a learner into now being the facilitator, the instructor. So we will have about a little less than 10 minutes, but I'm going to try to make it 10 minutes. And as always, give you the announcement before we close. And just to be considerate of everybody's time and resources, remember to unmute yourselves and turn on your cameras because we want to see you. And I will see you very soon, okay? Have fun.
And we're back.
Welcome back, everybody. We tried to, oh, great, faces. We tried to maximize the time of our breakout session this time because everybody says we never give enough for this part. So it's hard to squeeze the content in 1 hour. So we've done great with our time. Thank you for participating, and thank you for the comments and feedback from our mentors as well. So before adjourning, I would like to have Dr. Flores just give some concluding remarks on why is it important finding the right community college in your career path. And I've added a few links that you can look afterwards. As you know, we upload a copy of this presentation into the resources section in Blackboard. And if you were unable to attend any of the previous webinar sessions, you can now see the video recordings right under the PDF document of the presentation. So in case you are interested in going back and revising some of those sessions, the recordings are up and available. Dr. Flores?
Yes. Well, you asked me to do something that is really difficult, which is to summarize all the information that was provided to us over the last hour. But I certainly want to thank Professor Delk and Professor Meyers for the input and for answering questions that the students had. I think ultimately you need to know, as a graduate student, you need to know what makes you tick. And if you understand what you're passionate about, make it obvious. You may have to dissect a few things before it becomes obvious to you that there are certain things that you prefer to do about the rest. And then if teaching is one of them, then there's 1,000 ways that you can become an educator. But something that I realized that Dr. Meyers noticed is that you got to find that sweet spot for you. And then you had to realize that community colleges also are sort of the sweet spot in higher education. If I had known as an undergraduate student, and I was very inclined to teaching at the time, every time that I sat in a classroom, I was always thinking about how my professor had prepared for lecture and what were my professor's credentials for teaching in higher education. Had I known that there were other types of institutions like community colleges, I probably wouldn't be here talking to you in this particular setting, because from the onset, I was very passionate about teaching. Of course, I joined a university who was going through a transition from being a comprehensive university to a research institution. And that made it extremely appealing to me to pursue a career as a professor at university. But I always think back and say, had I had an opportunity to talk to a community college professor, probably my career would have been really different. So just keep that in mind, that these conversations have the potential of changing not only how you see yourself, but also how you see the world. And ultimately, that's the goal of the Aspire program, to make sure that you see the world slightly differently. You have a slightly different prism to look things through, and perhaps, discover that rainbow of possibilities that you might not have thought about. So, Sarah, that's all I have for now.
That's perfect.
And back to you.
And well, thank you, everybody. Again, thank you to our speakers, Dr. Meyers and Professor Delk. We have their contact information in the chat and on this slide, which again, you can download after the presentation. I'll upload it in a second. So thank you for your time. Also, Mr. Banerjee will be reaching out with some announcements. He wasn't able to join us today, but I just want to thank you all for the great work you've done with your submissions. Everybody is up to date with their first observation and the teaching philosophy statement. And now we're receiving, I know some of you already uploaded your second observation. So we are right on track, you guys. I know we had a rough start and we've made adjustments, but it is a remote life and we are being flexible as we expect that you advance and complete successfully your fellowship experience. So thank you very much. Have a great day. And yes, Cletus, do you have a question before we adjourn?
Yeah, so when are we having the next webinar, and then what's the next deliverable that we should focus on?
After the second observation, we're going to have lesson plans, an example of lesson plans. And prior to that, just as with the teaching philosophy statement, our speaker for that session will be a working session will be presented on how to develop a lesson plan.
Okay, thank you.
You're welcome. Anybody else? Any other questions, comments before we adjourn?
Thank you for having us. It was great to speak to everyone. If there are any mechanical engineers that could figure out how this animal is getting out of my house, I'm sorry I had to disappear a minute ago because the neighbors were bringing back my dog. So we don't know how he's getting out, but he's getting out.
That's nice. Okay, everybody, we'll have a great afternoon. Thank you to our mentors who participated, and we will see you soon. Have a great weekend. Get your vaccine. Stay safe.
Thanks so much.
Definitely. Goodbye.
Bye, everyone.
Thank you. Bye.
Well done, Sarah.
Ben, I told Sarah I needed a Sarah. She needs to clone herself. We were speaking at, I don't know, 1 in the morning last night. I said, I need a Sarah. I do. Yes, this is Peanut. He was my ungrateful companion while I was trying to.